So today we are going to keep going on with our linear section. We're on a line part of chapter P. If you remember before, I told you chapter P is just kind of all over the place. So we were doing like exponential stuff. Today is going to be very focused on lines. So hopefully if you remember lines, linear equations from algebra 1, algebra 2, this should be a pretty easy day or a nice little review. Just reminding you, last time we talked, we went over slope. I made us learn this really quick before our quiz. We talked about slope and we talked about when it was okay to have 0 on top and then no, when it was not okay to have 0 on bottom. So we wrote undefined. Everybody remembers slope from the other day, right? Okay, we will be using that. Okay, now we're going to still continue using slope. It says find point B so that the slope of line AB is as indicated. So what I have going on here is instead of us having 2 points and we find the slope between them, we're missing part of one of the points, but we do have our slope. So that's how we're going to find that missing part. We're going to use our slope equation. I'm going to say m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Let's label our points x1, y1, x2, y2, and then m is already labeled as that 2/3. So when we set up this equation, we're instead of saying m equals, we're going to say 2/3 equals because I actually know what my slope is. I know what I want it to be. Then I can do my y2 minus y1. So I'm going to go y minus 2 and then x2 minus x1, 6 minus 3. Okay. I'm going to then simplify from there. So I still have it equal to 2/3. Y minus 2 cannot simplify, but 6 minus 3 can. So 6 minus 3 becomes 3. My equation now says 2/3 equals y minus 2/3. We could simply just cross multiply, solve. However, does anyone notice anything? A faster way maybe I could solve this? Set the top equal to each other. Why am I allowed to do that, Sophia? The same denominator. If they both are 3 in the denominator, then the 2 on top, but both must be 2. The numerators both must equal each other. That was really hard for me to say. So I'm just going to set 2 equal to y minus 2, and then we can solve. Add 2 to both sides. Y is equal to 4. So that means in order to get a slope of 2/3, my point B must be 6, 4. That's what we're getting at there. We're going to do the same idea for the next problem, but it's not going to be as simple as just setting the numerators or setting the denominators equal. We'll have to do a little cross multiplication. So I'm going to go label my points x1, y1, x2, y2, and I'm going to set up my equation. -3/8 is equal to -2 minus -8 over x minus 4 over x minus 4. I'm going to simplify what I've got going on. -3/8 is equal to 6 over x minus 4. Now, everyone's brains work a little differently. If you're like, oh, I see a pattern, I know how to make this an easy setup, great, do it. In my brain, I don't see a very easy, like, oh, the bottoms are equal, so the tops get to be equal. I'm just going to go into a cross multiplication. So I'm going to multiply -3 times x minus 4. And that's going to be equal to 8 times 6. So if it's not as simple as the last one where the denominators were equal, so the numerators are just equal, just cross multiply and we'll solve that way. -3 times x minus 4, 6 times 8. Distribute. -3x plus 12 equals 48. Minus my 12. -36, and then I divide by -3, and x equals -12. Bless you. X equals -12. So then that point would have had to be -12, -2 in order for that to work out. Does that make sense? Everyone's okay with that? All right, moving on. Now, the next 2 problems are basically the same. It will like give us the same idea. Like the first one gives us a point and a slope, 2 points, parallel, perpendicular. Number 4 looks exactly the same. A point and a slope, 2 points, parallel, perpendicular. The only difference between these two sets of problems are the directions. The directions for number 3, the one that we're on right now, says write the point slope form of this line. Who remembers point slope form? Ryan, I think you're doing it. Y minus y1 equals m good times x minus x1. Awesome. We found it together. We found it together. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Like I was telling my geometry kids today, we are not that creative in math. We do not have fun, cute, creative names. We are very much like, what are we doing? That's what the name is. We go point slope because I have a point, x1 and y1 is my point, and my slope is my m. So point slope form, physically, you can see a point and you can see a slope, okay? So try and break it down if you ever get confused or get lost. That's how I know it's that one, because it uses a point and a slope. I do not want you to simplify it down. The next directions will tell you slope intercept. This, I want you to leave it in kind of this ugly, unfinished form, okay? So this first one, when I have a point and a slope, I have my point, 6, negative 2, x1, y1, and I have my slope of m is 6. I'm simply just going to plug it into that equation. Y minus y1, so y minus negative 2 equals m, 6, times x minus x1, which is also 6. The only cleaning up I really want you to do is I don't love a minus and negative. I'd rather just make that one big plus sign. And so if you immediately said y plus 2, totally fine. I do not want you to distribute. I do not want you to combine like terms. I do not want you to get y by itself. That's as good as it gets. Okay. Bless you. This next one has 2 points. What do I do to start this one? Find my slope. Very good. Find my slope. I've got my x1, y1, x2, y2. 17 minus 5 over 4 minus negative 2. So 12 over 6, which is 2. So you guys got? Yeah. Okay. Now, when I do point slope form, does it matter which point I use? Nope. As long as you use both from one point, you have to use negative 2 and 5, or 4 and 17. You can't mix and match, but you can use either point, whatever makes you happy. I'm going to go y minus 5 equals 2 times x plus 2. We doing good with this so far? This is cake, right? Easy stuff. Okay, flip your paper over. I'm just going to add 2 more little curveballs, but hopefully we're so good that these aren't even curveballs. The next directions say that it's parallel to this equation, x plus 4y equals 10, and it contains this point. Why is it important that you know that it's parallel to this line? Slopes are the same, right? Parallel means the same slope. Okay. Now, in order to figure out what my slope is, let's get that y by itself. Can you put this in y slope intercept form? Yep. What do you do first?
Subtract x over
Minus x.
divided by 4.
Perfect. And at this point, I like to remind you that you don't actually have to work this all the way out. I don't care what that new equation is. All I care is about this term right here. So negative x divided by 4, that means that my slope is negative 1/4. Is everyone okay with how I went from negative x divided by 4 to my slope just being negative 1/4? Okay, now you have your slope and you have a point. We're going to plug those in. Got my m, got my x1, got my y1. And again, we're still in the easy land where all we're doing is plugging it in. X or y plus 1 equals negative 1/4 x minus 1. Okay. All right, last curveball is the word perpendicular. Means it's flipped. Opposite reciprocal, good. I like to think of my reciprocal as my flip, and I like to think about my opposite as negative. So if it was positive, you need to make it negative. If it was negative, you need to make it positive. So flip the sign, flip the fraction, all of those things. Just like we did on the last one, we need to get this y by itself. We don't know what the slope is until we're in slope intercept form. So minus your 2x. Divide by your -6. And again, I don't care what any of the other parts are. All I care about is this term right here. -2x divided by -6 means that my slope of that equation is going to be 1/3. When I do my opposite reciprocal, what is my new slope? -3. Perfect. Just make sure that you get it down to that slope and then you flip it. Sometimes we get lost or we forget that we haven't flipped it or done my opposite reciprocal yet, so we leave it as 1/3. Make sure you go that extra step. Okay, contains that point, put it into my equation. Y minus 7 equals -3x plus 3. Did I move too fast on that or are we doing okay?
Doing okay.
Great. I'm gonna let you do the next one by yourself. The only difference between what we just did and what you're about to do is now I want it all the way down to slope intercept form. What is that gonna be? Y equals mx plus b. So go ahead and simplify it all the way out. I'll do my work at the same time as you so you can check it, but I want you to do it by yourself or with a neighbor. I don't think I need to walk you with this one. Mhm. That's what that slope intercept means. I'll have my answers highlighted, so I have letter A up whenever you need to check it. I've got my letter B up too when you need to check it. I'll let those both be up for a second. Yeah. Is it? I think, why is it supposed to be positive? It should be, that should be a plus, right? That x should be x minus -4, which should be plus. Good catch, thank you. Now on these ones where there's 0, if there's a point with a 0, I always like to use it. I chose to have the 0 with the y, so I didn't have to move anything over. But if you were like, I hate fractions, I like at my core, you could do the other point, you could do 0, 3 and do y minus 3 equals 3/4 times x minus 0. That being said, when you multiply those, then all you have to do is 3/4 times x. Anything times 0 is just 0. So if that is easier for you to think about, then you can just add that 3 over when you're done and you'll get the same thing. So either one works. And there might be perks to picking which point you pick. Let me do my other two. Are you, everybody good? I can go do C and D. This one's easy. Parallel is the same. Got some fractions I gotta deal with now, but. Just a little fraction reminder, I could not simplify 2/3 times 4, so I had to keep it 8/3. And then when I minus 2 from both sides, I made 2 into a fraction with 3 in the denominator. So 2 is the same thing as 6 divided by 3. And so I could do 8 divided by 3 minus 6 divided by 3, and then I get 2/3. Now I've got a perpendicular one. Okay. All right. Those are my last two. Is everyone doing okay on those? Take a second, double check. Anybody questions on those? All right, I think it's time to flip your paper. Okay, now, this is what I was telling you, we were gonna have to do some word problems today. Yeah. Well, all right, C just got 2 of them done, so as long as we can get 2 of them done, then we are good to go. I will tell you, you need a graphing calculator for this part, so go ahead and get your graphing calculator out. This is where we kind of remind ourselves some things. All right, so you may be kind of juggling between pages, but I did put the problem on the screen so you can also see it. So if you look at that paper I just passed out to you a minute ago with all the word problems on it. I have them under here, yeah. Everybody got one of these, right? We're just gonna go in order. I tried to put them in order that we use them. So if you just look at the one in the top left-hand corner, we're gonna do those top 2. Hopefully we have plenty of time for those 2 today. So first one says Bob Michaels purchases a house 8 years ago for $42,000. This year it was appraised for $67,500. Sorry, I think my numbers are so hard. Okay, so those are important to us. A linear equation V equals MT plus V. Okay, pause. Sometimes we see this equation and we already panic. You're like, what is even happening here, right? This looks a lot like our slope intercept form, correct? It's just y equals mx plus v. Don't let it panic you. The only reason I use v and t instead of x and y is for us to have some meaning behind what those variables are referring to. So in this case, t is referring to time between 0 to 15 years. And then v is for the value of the home. It's going to be how much that house will cost. It's nice to define those variables just so we can remember what we're plugging in and where. Okay, so first thing it says is determine M and V. So essentially we're going to write a linear equation for this situation. If you remember, we just did like 8 different problems where we were writing linear equations. What I want to do this time is I want to use 2 coordinate points, okay? We're going to use 2 points to write this equation, okay? And the points are going to come from the information above. 8 years ago, he bought this house for this much. Today, it's this much. Okay. I'm going to start by the first point. I'm going to say 0 years ago. When he bought his house, he had owned it for 0 years, correct? 0 years ago, the house cost how much? 42,000, good. Okay, now I'm gonna say 8 years later, so now my X is gonna be 8 and my Y is gonna be how much it costs today. You're welcome to use -8 for how much it costs at the beginning and then 0 for how much it costs today. I just would prefer not to have any negatives if I can help it, right? I just only want positive numbers. So 0 to 42,000 and then 8 to 67,000. I don't know if that recorded. Let me